What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Young, Wise, and Rich. I got one of my good friends here. Her name is Jordan. Jordan, I want to know if you want to tell them a little bit about your testimony, but yeah, the floor is yours.
So I always grew up in church. My parents have been in ministry ever since I got married, so really a little over 20 years. So I grew up in the church. So because my parents were in ministry, I moved a lot. And so I moved like all around Florida. I moved to Tennessee recently. I moved to Washington State, and we lived there for 4 years. And then we moved back here. My dad took leadership at a church here that we used to attend to actually when I was like 10. And so we moved here, and it was actually during COVID. So it was like 2020, and we moved here during COVID.
Oh, wow.
And it was, oh my gosh, it was so bad.
So you guys had a lot.
Oh, no, yeah. So I was a sophomore in high school. I always, I grew up knowing God was real. Yeah. I always grew up knowing God was real. But I basically I depended on my parents' faith and my family's faith instead of my own. So I, never really experienced my own faith, and I've never experienced my own relationship with God. But obviously I was in high school and lived the high school life, was not living the way that the Bible said to live by. So I was partying, I was going to parties. I was friends with a lot of people who didn't value God's was nitpicky on the Bible almost. They would follow this, but they wouldn't follow other things.
Right.
Or I was friends with people who didn't even believe in God, or people who and I surrounded myself with that.
Yeah.
And so all of that happened, and then during these years of me moving around and everything, I struggled with a lot of bullying, ever since I was little. And honestly, till this day, I still haven't, I really have no idea why I was bullied a lot. I think it was I think it's just how I was a little different when I was a kid. I acted a little differently. And so because I was bullied at a young age, I honestly grew up what other people wanted me to be than really my own person. So when I say young age, I think I was only 6 or 7, and that's when I've never really had my own personality until now. When I was 6 all the way till almost senior year of high school, I lived my life from what other people wanted me. Or how the world would accept me. And and all those years rejection happened, judgment, and all that. And so senior year happened, and senior year was actually probably one of my best years, because I finally started to okay, let me just step away from this friend group just for a little bit. And then I just decided, I was you know what, I realized that I'm actually happier now that I'm not hanging out with them a whole lot. So let me just so senior year was more of church friends and all that kind of stuff. And then I graduated, went to tech college. I only was in school for 14 weeks.
Okay.
So it was pretty fast, and I got licensed.
Kind of jealous.
Yeah, right? When people always ask me, they're like, are you in school? And I'm no, I already graduated. And they're how old are you? And I'm I'm 20, but but I was only in school for 14 weeks.
Yeah, I got lucky.
So, but during this, during after high school and in that college life, I realized that I still knew God existed, but I never really had a father-daughter relationship with him. God, we always see God as just a huge creator of the universe, but I never really had that personal relationship with him. So I went to my last youth camp 2023, so last year, and obviously we all know what happens at youth camp. You start getting vulnerable and like and then I got baptized a month later, and I was just like, I'm done living my old life of what the world thinks and what people, like flesh people think, and I want to live my life how God sees me, like through His eyes.
Exactly.
So since July, I've been working on growing my relationship with Him, growing my really my knowledge a lot, like because I realized that when I was a kid, when I was a PK, I knew some of the stories, like I just know a lot of like the kids' story, like Esther and just all that, but I never really like actually read the Bible into it and read like the adult version instead of the Veggie Tales. Instead of watching the Veggie Tales, I literally was like, actually, let me start reading it. And then I realized, I was like, wait, like I don't know what all like that happened, and there was a lot of stuff in Adam and Eve that I didn't know. And I was like, wait. So so I'm basically just like I've always struggled. Part of my testimony, I have a lot of different parts with my testimony, but the one big thing was definitely finding my identity. I was finding my identity in the world instead of God. And that's something now that I am working through, and the season that I'm in, I'm really working on how I identify as God and how God sees me through His eyes, and how He sees me as a daughter and not just as a follower. If that makes sense.
Exactly. I think that's and even like telling your testimony, like it's like it's cool, like especially like because I think the enemy has a very good way of tricking us into believing that we go through things by ourselves, or like you're alone in certain things. Like for me personally, like they know a little bit. Like I was homeschooled 5th all the way through high school, so like I didn't really face that type of like external pressure. It was more like the internal, like where it's like my circle of friends, like it's like, oh yeah bro, we're talking to this girl, or this is going on, and it's like you kind of feel like you're left out because you feel like, and from a young age I knew I was set apart. Like I was the type of person where like people knew not to ask me certain things because they knew I wasn't going to entertain it. They were like, oh,
that's the same thing with
that's
me.
The church kid, what I'm saying? So at a young age it was like, and then I always heard like God had a plan for my life, and that was always scary to me because I'm like, I knew from a young age, like if I'm living for God, I can't do things my way. So it's like, it was like a fighting process where it's like, no, like God, like I want to be used by you, but at the same time I also want to do what I want to do. We're young, so it's like, I also like, like it's like a lot of pressure where it's like, and I used to I don't necessarily look at it as pressure anymore because it's like, going to your job, like you're an esthetician. Like I know that's not pressure for you. It's like when a person swipes up on your Instagram, it's like, oh wow, I got another client today. And so it's like the same thing I feel like with our relationship with God. It's not a matter of, oh, I gotta read my Bible or I gotta go to church. It's like, no, like I want to learn as much about you as I possibly can because I'm your son and you're my father. So, like actually just kind of getting to that point where it's like, I had the same thing with friends and God. I always tell people like, with my testimony, like God gave me what I thought I wanted and then He kind of took it away.
Oh, He was like,
it was like
I always say to people like, God has a sense of humor.
He really does. He really
does. He knows what you want, and He's like, no, psych.
Like that episode with Ashton, like I was like, I have a big friend group. I was like talking to this girl I was working with, and then it was like, that didn't work out. My friends, I used to look at it like, oh, like God, like why place them in my life?
Right.
Gonna take them out anyways. But it's like, no, like it still taught me something about myself and even about like the people that that you keep around you. And also I think He does that stuff because I tell people all the time, like when it comes to really forgiveness, how can you forgive if you've never been put in a situation to actually forgive? And it's like I really had to forgive because when you're here, people are talking behind your back. It's like I thought we were like best friends.
That was the one thing that I always struggled with was I've always like desired like a best friend that would like, because I always see other people like having their best friend and like how they like hang out all the time and like they just like goof around, and I always desired that friend. And then when I say years and years, I always brought someone close and they would just like betray
exactly.
like would just walk away, and I'm
Yeah.
like, why does this keep happening?
Yeah.
It's till this day, like it still happens.
Right. But I think it's like it's like that's I feel like the funny thing about life is, especially when you like submit your life to God, you realize that first of all the things that we go through, He already went through.
Mm-hmm.
So then second of all, it's like He's shaping and molding us to become more like He is in the first place. So it's like, how can we be more like somebody if we don't go through those same tests and trials that they went through?
Right.
And that's like what, you know, He's constantly reminding me. But also before I start asking the questions, I don't know if you want to tell them what season that you're currently in your life, and or if you want me to start off, I could. If you,
I could start off. That's fine.
Okay.
I would say, I think the season right now, if I would explain it in like just like a couple words, it's definitely of a growing season. But that growing season is also a season where obviously it's not an isolation season, but I know that like, because I am an extrovert and I always wanted to hang out with people, hanging out with people was what is like, that's what fulfilled me. Realizing that like the world will never fulfill me, God only does that. Exactly. So like this season's definitely spending more time with God, and like for me, like I never really even had a prayer life. And me constantly wanting to like, you know, I need to start praying more, I need to start reading my Bible more. I really talk to God. I don't really pray. I don't be like, all right, Lord, Lord Heavenly Father. No, I'm like, hey God, what's up? Like oh my gosh, all the time. But I think definitely it's a growing season. It's not a lonely season, but like just me and Him.
Exactly.
And then I would also say probably because I grew up in church and I like always had church, almost became like a habit for me. And I think one thing is like not making reading your Bible or praying, making it a chore, but making it a Jesus moment, making a God moment out of it. So I think that's definitely kind of what the season I'm in right now.
I just heard a pastor say, like, you know, actually not even a pastor, it was actually at that men's conference yesterday.
Oh my gosh, that men's conference was so, okay. Before you guys say anything, I was there taking pictures.
She was.
And one of our pastors there, he's the only like really guy that takes like pictures and stuff. And I was like, I'd rather you like enjoy and like talk to the guys. Let me just take pictures.
Right.
So I took pictures. That was yesterday.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was yesterday.
Yesterday. So before y'all even say anything.
Yeah, the funny thing was everybody was like, bro, like I walked in and, you know, I just see all these men, and then all of a sudden I see Jordan. I knew she was going to be here because you told me that a couple weeks ago. So I was like,
they were all like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not supposed to be here. And I'm like, do y'all want pictures of me? Because I can leave.
Yeah, I remember like the last, like one day we had James have me taking pictures. And then he was like, you know, I sat down because I was like, oh no, like this sermon is actually pretty good.
Did you hear the speaker that he actually went on stage and he's like, welcome my brothers. Oh, and apparently there's like one sister
I did
here.
hear
I didn't hear that. I was out of the room when he said that.
I didn't see you taking pictures anymore.
That was so funny.
Bro, that was hilarious. But yeah, like that he said something on the circuit, like when he was preaching yesterday, he was like, yo, like you gotta in this life, like read your word, like it's probably gonna be your last time reading your Bible, like, you know, going to church like it's their last time going to church, like actually making that intentional. And that's something that I told you even before the podcast started, like I'm in this season of my life, like actually like spending more intentional time with Him rather than just rush time.
Yeah, that's good.
Because like, I got like all these hours in the day, and it's like when I actually have my free time, it's like what do I actually choose to spend my free time? It's like hanging out with friends. It's that like me, like I was talking to someone that I forgot who it was at Young Adults, and I was like she was like, oh, you're sitting by yourself. And I was like, I'm a loner, man. I don't think people really understand that.
I'm a loner.
Yeah, so I be going to like the movies by myself, and it's like, yo.
Okay,
like,
that's weird.
Yeah, it's not weird. You gotta enjoy your own company.
Because apparently a lot of guys do that, and I'm like, I want a whole group to come.
Yeah, no,
I
want
like,
myself.
I literally went to the movies a couple weeks ago with like 6 other girls because I didn't want to go alone.
Yeah, I got like when you got the whole theater to yourself, that's a different feeling. That's a different feeling. But the first question that I wrote is, how are you navigating the current season that you're in? Or that you're currently in?
I think with how I navigate is basically just how I'm definitely trying to think positively, about things and not negatively.
Yeah.
Because I was I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be perfect. I wanted to make sure no one really knew that there was nothing really wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I think realizing that God, when he sees brokenness, he sees beauty.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely something that when navigating toward the season that I'm in, that me not knowing everything in the Bible, me not knowing how to pray those big prayers, it's not and I love this song. There's a song At the Altar, the Elevation Rhythm. And there's a part in that song where don't make it perfect, just let it be honest. And I was that spoke to me, because I realized that I wasn't honest when it came to the season that I'm in. I was trying to strive just to be perfect in my growing, but not honest in my growing. So I think that's definitely something that I had to realize, that I can't be perfect when he's already perfect. We're not perfect.
We're not at all.
We're not.
And I think that's I know you said something even when you talking about your testimony, how you're a people's person. And
oh no, yeah.
You want to hang around people all the time. And I'm the same way. I joke around and say I'm a loner, but it's everybody, we're human. We want to be go out with our group of friends. And it's I think the Lord, I know especially for me, I feel my season is always May. It's always a pivotal point in my life in May. I met my old group of friends May 2021. We stopped talking May 2022. And this podcast and stuff started May 2022.
Stop.
I promise you. And it's and I started a Bible study with my friends, and it's
So my season started in May.
Oh really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
My season started in May.
And now I'm in that similar season, but I'm that was 2 years ago where I stopped talking to my old friend. And honestly, God's kind of reconnected that in a lot of ways with some of those old people. Where again, I was saying about forgiveness, but it's kind of even at that place where it's God is knocking on your door, you're not texting anyone, you're not calling anyone.
I want to piggyback off of that. Usually, so because of the friendships and the unhealthy relationships and friendships that I've been in, I always just if they did me wrong or something, I would shut them down completely. Yeah. Not realizing that forgiveness, you can still forgive them, absolutely, but when they cross your mind and you think negatively about them, that's not forgiveness.
No, not at all.
And I think that's something when I was in high school, I completely after I graduated, I had Snapchat, I had all the social media and everything. I deleted Snapchat after I graduated, and I shut everyone down, and I was just living my own life. And then a friend of mine texted me a couple weeks ago hey, I really want to hang out. And she's been following my beauty page and everything. She's been commenting, and she's super supportive. She goes to church, she loves God, but she was a part of that group, but her she was one of the good ones, if that makes sense. But I shut everyone down completely because of how that group just was, and she texted me, she's I really want to hang out, and then I realized I was I shut down everyone instead of I think that's definitely in this season, I have to be, instead of accepting everyone, I have to be super picky with my friends this season.
Same here.
Because I'm such a people person. So I would want to.
It's always always us people people.
It's such a struggle.
Yeah, it is.
And so I bring everyone in, and then if something happens, I shut down, and I just shut them all down, and I don't give them a second chance. And realizing that that friend, she texted me, and then I realized, I was wait, she didn't do anything wrong. She just hung out with the people that that they did nothing wrong with me, actually. It was more just how they were living and how I was living. We were just in two different places. And and me and her are planning on going to dinner this week. So I'm trying to put myself back out there to some of my friends that I used to hang out in high school. I say that I'm old. I literally only graduated a year ago.
You're only 20, Jordan. But no, it's I was telling your brother that my thing was that's actually was one of the cool moments talking with your brother. Like we both love Friends. He was like,
oh no, yeah.
He's like, what's your favorite character, bro? I was like, Chandler. He's like, that's mine too. And it was like such a cool moment. But it was like that was like me. Like I would be like up watching Friends, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like especially when I get into college, I'm gonna have like this big friend group.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna do all these things together. And it was like, okay, cool. And that's something that like the Lord has had to show me, because my thing was like, okay, cool. Like I would say I forgave people, like, oh man, I forgive them. But then when people were like, because like one of my best friends still to this day, he was in that group, but like I've known him since like 7th grade. So he'll be like, yeah, bro, like this person. And I'm like, bro, why are you bringing this person up to me, bro? I don't want to hear about him. He's like, bro, I was just telling you, like, and it's like you really catch yourself in those moments, like. God is like, yo, you say you forgive him, but in your heart, I know you're lying to me.
And
like
God knows us so much because, like, He knows, like, us very well, like, to the point where I always knew that I wasn't gonna go into college when it came to like 2-year or 4-year, just because I was already done with high school. Like, I hated high school. I hated learning. I just like, it wasn't my thing. But I was like, obviously we're part of the young adults group and everyone's in college, everyone's in school. And I look and they have that college life, that fun college life. And then I was like, oh wait, I wanted that. But like God really convicted me and He was like, but if you went there, you would have stepped way further away from me. Like, because I know, like, I'm such a people person and I'm actually like a people pleaser as well. You know, and me going into that, like, it would have led into temptation with like drinking and just like all these wrong things. And I knew that. And I look back and I'm like, actually, like, I don't regret not going to college, just because like I know how blessed my life is now, and like I don't have to live in that. So I think that's definitely something that, like, when it came to like, I knew that like God knew what He was doing.
He knows it's what you need and what time you need.
Absolutely.
And that's like, and that was like my thing, where it's like, like I was like listening to this sermon, like, and that's something that I feel like, even with that first question where I'm like, where it's like, how are you navigating the season? That's something that has really helped me, is like listening to sermons. Like after I kind of split from my friend group, I was like, had nothing to do. I'm sitting in the house like by myself, bored, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, that's like where I really got to know God, because that's when, and it wasn't like just my friend group. It was people that I was friends with since like 5th, 6th grade, and I started talking to them as well. It was like a whole bunch of people, and I remember it was like that prayer where I was like, yo, God, like, take anyone out of my life that isn't for you.
That dangerous
prayer. And then place people in my life that are for, because I was like, yo, place people in my life that are for you, because if they're for you, they're going to be for me. And I promise you, no lie, Jordan, I prayed that on a Friday. Saturday, like 15 people were like, I'm done talking to you. Like, literally just like that. And I was like, God, I don't know if I really meant what I said. I think it was going to be like this.
So I never really prayed that dangerous prayer until like recently. And
it's different.
And realizing that, like, I prayed about that and they were like, hold on, you got to focus on you first. Like, you, like, you gotta focus on you. But honestly, like, I'm so scared of those kind of prayers.
It really is. Like, you hear people say, like, oh yeah, that's the dangerous prayer. You're like, okay, and then you pray it and it's like, this is really
real. Like, they weren't joking.
But it's like, I think that's like, I want to say, like, the beautiful thing about God is because it's like, no matter what season I'm in, He always just like I hear Him, like, like, just like, yo, like, I want you to desire me like I desire you, like, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, I used this on, I think it was episode 2 or 3, and I'm like, we all say we know God, but if someone came up to me in the street and they were like, yo, like do you know Jordan? I'll be like, yeah, like, tell me something about her. I can't tell you anything. I can't tell a person anything about you if I actually don't know you. Like, where it takes those moments, like, after church and we're talking, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that you went through that in your life. I went through, like, this and that. Because you get to know the person. Like, we say, like, we know God because we go to church, and we don't actually take that time to, I want to see what my word says about you. I want to see what you commanded me to do and how you want me to live my life. We will listen to a person preaching, and it's like, I heard like someone say, like, the pastor's time is his personal time that he's sharing with you. And that's something I love about transformation. They're like, yo, I'm gonna give you this word, but I want you guys to also go and do your own work.
My thing was like, I really got convicted, and I was just like, I was always asking of like what I needed, and he was just like, don't ask me when what you need when you don't even know me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just
that's
like,
tough. Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
It hurt.
Yeah, it does. Because it's like, that's the thing about conviction. It's like, you know, like that scripture where it's like the Lord, like he disciplines his children, like he disciplines who he loves. And it's like, you know, like you realize like, you know, it's like your parents, like, I don't want to get in trouble, but I remember he said that at the men's conference yesterday, like when he was getting in trouble by his dad, it's like, I knew my dad still loved me, but that is love when you're correcting me in my ways. And it's
that's the one thing I hate being corrected.
Yeah, I did too when I was growing up.
No, I still do.
Oh, yeah.
I still don't like being corrected. And that's definitely something that like, in this season, I have to have an open heart because I was so bitter and like, even though if it was like a good thing, like a good correction kind of thing, like I was just like, no, you just want to say that just so you can change me or like something. And I'm just
like you're like, do you think you're perfect or something? It's like you have those thoughts too, and it's like, bro, I'm just trying to help you, right? But second question I have is in this season of your life, how is your relationship with God different? You know, either from your previous season or, you know.
I think going back again and just how I always knew God existed when I was growing up, just because we always went to church and everything like that. But when in this season, definitely I realized again, like just how he sees us through his eyes. And I think definitely when it comes to in this world, everyone thinks like when they think about like religion and stuff like that, we think like worshiping him and like obviously we worship him, but we're really the only religion that actually has a true relationship with him.
Exactly.
And that's the difference with our we value relationship over religion. And I think that's one thing that I was like, oh yeah, I go to church, like I believe in God, that's like I'm a Christian, that's my religion. But in this season I realized I was like okay, like I'm God's child. I'm not just a follower, I'm his child. I'm not just his follower, I'm his child. I'm his daughter. So I think that's definitely something that is definitely different in this season, where I see, and that also goes into like my identity kind of thing, that like I always was just like, I'm a girl, I'm 20 years old, like I work at the church and that's me, but like I really never put in like, oh, I'm a daughter of Christ, like that's my identity, which we need to find our identity because that's what makes us grow, that's what really helps us, so I think that's definitely that's how different my relationship in this season is really than past seasons, for sure.
And I love that you said that about like we're his children. I think that goes over so many people's head, like just the fact that,
and we always hear that,
we do,
but when we actually when we actually have an open heart and want to like receive that, it feels totally different.
Exactly. It's like I had to get to that point where I like, you know, that was actually like second episode where I'm like, yo, like I was so like, I'm doing this, like, you know, like I'm living my life like this. Like, even when I was talking about like I knew I was set apart, like I knew there were certain things that it never tempted me like that, like, you know what I'm saying? But it's like that's not because of you, like that's not because of your own strength, that's because like my hand is over you. Like if I was to take my hand off, you're gonna be doing all the same thing, and it's you realize like, yo, like you've kept me in times that I probably didn't even really deserve to be kept, you know. And it's like how much you love us to send your son on the cross to die for us and to die the death that we should be dying, and how much you actually love us from like before creation even existed. Like, you know, it's like, bro, like he knew it was gonna be a Jordan Kramer when he made Adam and Eve. He knew it was gonna be an Adrian.
Honestly, I think that and I'm like, bro, like that's actually like insane.
Right, exactly. And it's like you get to that point where it's like, why wouldn't I want to live my life for you? Like after everything that you've done, that you could like, that you're continuing to do. And it's like, even like with those tough seasons, like isolation for me personally is a tough season because I'm not used to it. And it's like it's like always a learning curve. Like right where you think it's like, okay, cool, like I know what I'm doing, I know how I'm about to maneuver in this situation. It's like a block, and it's like, how are you good? Like you can't go around it, and you can't go through it.
Right.
And it's like, I need you to pick me up and pick me over.
Like I never really isolated. I was more like isolated in my feelings. Like I wanted to make sure that like no one knew what was going on or what was wrong. And then the season that I was in, because like I was in like, there were some relationships that just weren't healthy, and like, and then like now I'm in the season of singleness and realizing that like, because I was like alone, but it was like, well, you're not alone. And like my mom was like, Jordan, you're not alone. Like you have your family here. And I realized that like my mom is my best friend. Like my mom is my best friend, but like the world thinks that's weird. And my thought was like, oh, she's like, yeah, she's my best friend, but like I actually need like a best friend.
Best friend.
And like I realized, I was like, no, that's just the worldly view. People like don't really this world doesn't really see that a lot anymore.
No, they don't.
And definitely when it comes to that love, that like, because I was like, now I'm single in this season, realizing that like I actually isolated, and then it caused a little bit of like depression. And right now, like for the first like a month or 2 months or so, like I was dealing with depression and didn't even realize it. My two of my friends was like, whoa, like you're really different. Like you didn't like, and I was like, no, I'm fine. And they're like, no, you're not. And those are my closest friends right now, and realizing that that's also another thing that I go so off track, but like it's all for a purpose. Like my thing is that like I've always prayed for that one friend, or like those friends that like I spend God with, and like faith friends instead of flesh friends, really. And realizing that when it comes to that negative, like the negative thinking, the positive thinking, me realizing that I'm living in an answered prayer right now. We have to realize that like we might be living in an answered prayer right now, and we don't even realize.
And you gotta take those moments where you're like, I was praying for this, and like you gave it to me. Like I always shout him out. Like my friend Matthew, like that's my best friend. like it be so many times like where he'll just hit me up, and he'll be like, he'll be like, Adrian,
is it the friend where like you guys don't have to talk for like
and then
like and then you can like just go back into like where you guys left off?
Especially now, because like he's in school, so like he moved away, like so it's like now like it's like really only touch. But it'll be times like where he was like here, like we always hung out because like we worked at the hospital together, and it was like. And I remember the you can ask my mom after this episode is over, but like the funny thing is, he was my trainer. He's only a year older than me. And he was like, yeah, I'm Matthew, and I'm like, yo, I'm Adrian, and we just talked that whole day. And I remember I came back home, and I'm like, yo, mom, like I met this guy named Matthew, and I did that, like that dude's gonna be my friend. And no lie, Jordan, like after I got done training and I left the hospital, like he was like. And I was kind of getting to that point where I was like, like I don't want to kind of force relationships. That's what I always had a habit of doing. Like if no one really texted me, I always was like, no, I'm gonna text them. And then you kind of get to that point.
See, I was the opposite. I wanted to force. I realized that like I was the first one texting.
Yes, really, that's what I'm saying.
And then I stopped texting, and no one texted me back, and I was like, okay, like. That was one of the signs.
But I was still text though. Like even when I realized that they weren't texting me, I'll be like, I'm bored. Let me text you. And so the thing was like, after that point, at like 18, 19, I was like, yeah, no, I'm done doing that, bro. So like, we didn't have each other's numbers or anything. So like, just randomly one day, he hit me up on Instagram. He was like, bro, we're going into spring break, bro. Like, do you want to go grab dinner? And I was shocked because I'm like, nobody's ever done this before. So I'm like, yo, sure. Like after that, it was like where it's like talks about like David and Jonathan, and like it's like that's me and Matthew. Like it's like where it's like that type of friendship where it's like, bro, I love you as much as I love myself, bro. Like, and it's those times where I like he's the one friend like where Pastor Mike was like those 2 a.m. friends where I'm like, bro,
oh my gosh.
I was like in April, I was going through a really tough season.
Here's the thing, my 2 a.m. friend is my mom.
That's the
and the best thing is, she's already in the house.
Yeah,
so
I
could just walk
go knock on her door.
over, like just right down the hall and be like, hey, like I need you right now.
and it's like, it's so funny because like in April, like I tell you, like so many things got thrown my way. It was like my old youth pastor passed away, and then the assistant pastor at the same church passed away, and it was like we're about to move like in the next week, and I'm like, God, like, can I get a break?
Come on,
and like Matthew was like, bro, like if you need anything, like bro, me and Abby, like we'll like bro, we're here for you, bro.
Right.
And it was like just those, like actually realizing, like, you know, outside of your family, because your family's always going to care for you, and I think sometimes that's like people, we kind of want that outside of our family because we see it, like we see these people with these many friends, or we see like, oh yeah, they're close friends. I want that, and it's like, why don't we go to him for that? Like, you know what I'm saying?
So
like,
true.
Like he's supposed to be our best friend. Like it's like when our heart is aligned with his, it's like we don't have nothing we're missing. Even when we're in those seasons where it's like, God, I don't know why I'm in this place. I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. Like, you know, it's like I'm the type where I run from that. Like it takes me a minute. It actually takes me when I say isolated, I mean like it's just like, okay, cool. Like who do I have to go to? And it's
that
like,
was so like one of the things that I say to, and I keep saying this to people when they, you know, have that same like season that I'm in, that we seek advice from godly people but not from God himself. And it's so true.
Yeah, so true. I had a habit of that. Like I used to be like, you know, like bro, like what do you think about this? Or like I saw this, and it's like, bro, like I'm erasing.
And sometimes you're not satisfied with the answer, and then you're like, and then you go to God, and you're like, oh, I could have done this a long time ago.
Right, like my friends now, like I used to be like, yeah, bro, like, you know, like I heard this word, or like God told me this, like, what do you think, bro? And they'll be like, who'd you say told you that? I'm like, oh, bro, God told me that. And they're like, so maybe you need to go to God with that. And I'm like, you're right. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're not trying to get, because it's like, it's a difference between human wisdom, and I don't even really believe in that. Like when people say like I have because it's like wisdom and understanding.
Wisdom comes from God.
So it's like if I cut myself off from the source, as in I'm not spending time with him, I'm not trying to get to know him. Do I really have wisdom?
Right.
It's like no, because it's like at that point I only have, the only thing I'm relying on is my experience. Right. And wisdom outweighs experience every day of the week, you know? So it's like...
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's like kind of getting back to that point where it's like, you know, like, I'm just more so trying to, in this season of my life, intently listen to him rather than just like... sit in quietness and stillness where it's like, okay, cool, like, I'm not... It'd be times where I sit in my car and I don't say nothing. I just be like, driving home from YA, driving home from like just anywhere I'm going, I'm like... I'm not gonna say nothing, like, you know, and then it's like, yo,
me, I'm always in the car, and then I realize that, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I have no time for God, but like, you can worship and you can pray in the car,
that's
like
job.
That was the one thing that I was like, oh, I have to pray in my room, with my Bible out and like all my pens and my notebook, and it's gotta be like aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
And then I realized I was like,
social media.
I was like, and then I was like, I can really do this anywhere. Right. There's not like a set place where you can do it. Like,
no, that's so true. Third question is, how do you depend on God through tough or isolated seasons?
I think how I depend, I think I'm always like, I always have to have a reason behind when things happen to me. I always have to like either give myself a reason on how I act a certain way, or like how I say like I'm a perfectionist and this is how I act. I think when I'm in those like tough seasons, and when I'm in that tough season, I really don't have, like, I don't put a reason in it if it's a godly season. And I realize that like God has a reason for these things, and I think that's definitely something that I have to depend on way more, is that what I'm struggling through right now when it comes to like depression and like not having a lot of friends, but I'd rather have 2 or 3 faith friends than like a whole lot of flesh friends. It's
funny that you said, I heard a pastor say like, I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. I was like, that's fire.
That's fire. So I think that's definitely something like God has a and like again, like I always listen to this. This was always something that I heard years because I grew up in church, so I was like, there's a purpose behind it, there's a reason. But when you actually like open your heart into what when God says that I have a reason for you, I have a purpose behind this.
Right.
Like, we have to believe it. And I think that's definitely something now that there's behind every fear, behind every insecurity, there's a blessing behind that.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely, something that I have to start depending on.
Yeah. And also, like, realizing, like, I've been really, like, studying David. Like, and, like, realizing, like, God, like, used David so much, and it was in his weaknesses. Like, where flesh people were like, no, like, you're short. Like, you're not going to beat Goliath. And it was, like, that's how he won. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's, like, that's how we win when we realize it's not us. Like, I know, like, David was not like, oh, yeah, I did this. Like, like, even he, like, probably was, like, if it was on my strength, like, if I wasn't depending on the Lord my God, I wouldn't be accomplishing anything in my life. And, like, you look at those seasons where it's like, you look at those times in his life where he wasn't, where he was committing the sins that he committed, and it was like, like, I heard a pastor say, like, where was his heart at in those moments? Like, in those times where he was committing those sins, it's like, it's like, what are you doing in your alone time? Like, what, like, are you being, again, intentional with God, or are you just like, I'll get to it later?
I think that was the one thing, because I'm on the worship team. I'm a youth leader, and I love doing video work and photography and stuff. Yeah. I realized that I depended on my gifts and not God alone.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something. And those gifts, they do help you grow. Yeah. But when you're seeking the growth and not God Himself, that's something that, like, why are you doing it in the first place? So that's definitely something that, again, like, it's definitely, like, depending on my gifts will never make me grow, really. Yeah. Like, it's just definitely, it's just a whole like moment of just, like, conviction. I think, like, season of, like, getting, like, punched in the gut from God. If I had to, like, title it, like, gun punch, like, that would be the season that I'm in right now.
Right. And that's like, and that's why I say I relate so much to that. And it's like, I was like, I thank Him for, like, realizing, like, how you said, like, those faith friends. And it's like, even when I said, like, I pray, like, yo, God, like, send people in my life that are for you, because I know, like, look, if He sends this person, like, I remember Ashton, when he said on the podcast, he was like, you can see who is His. And you can tell, like, who just say, like, yo, I'm following Him, but they're not truly following Him. And it's like, I think I
wish I had that gift, because I currently don't. Like, I can't, like, look at someone and be like, oh, I know everything of, like, like, I know how you live your life with. I'm like blinded. I don't have that gift.
Hey, I think I didn't think I really had it either, but it really how it works for me is listening to people talk. True. Like, I remember I told you, like, that day where like, like, the new worship pastor where we, like, I remember I told you, I'm like, yo, Jordan, like, God's going to use your story to touch millions. And I know that, because it's like, yo, like, when you're listening to the person's heart behind what they say, like, I've talked to a whole bunch of people, and it's all, like, you can tell the people that they're the creator of their story, and then you can tell those people, like, no, God's writing my story, I'm just the pen, I'm just His vessel. And, like, I think those people, those are who you can tell, like, yo, no, those are God's children right there. Like, those people that have God-like qualities, even though they may not see it. Like, it's like, you see those times in your life where it's like, oh yeah, no, like, how we say, like, like, I had, like, a conscience not to go to this place. It's like, no, God gave you discernment, and that's a spiritual gift, but we don't really give credit to the person that actually deserves it. And that's, like, the point that I had to get to in my life, where it's like how you said, like, every gift that I possess is not really mine. It's something that He's added to me. And it's like,
no, absolutely,
I'm not going to let the rocks cry out in my place. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, like, no, like, I want to be used as a vessel. I want to be used for you. And it's like, I'm going to just let you, like I said, I'm going to get in the passenger seat and let you drive this car, like, But yeah, the fourth question is actually a 2-part question. So I'll probably, like, read the first part.
All right, yeah.
So what is some encouragement that has helped you in this season of life that you're in? Maybe it's encouragement that you've received from, your friends, or, like,
I think definitely when I, like, so Pastor Emily, who she's part of the church. She's a kids pastor there, but she's also like her husband's the youth and young adult pastor. So she's obviously my youth, or she's not my youth pastor. She's my young adult pastor. And when I finally talked to her about so many things, like when it came to like friendships and all that, me and her kind of had the similar story where it came like to like friends and stuff like that. Realizing that, again, like you don't have to have a lot of friends as long as they're the right ones. Right. So I think that's definitely some encouragement that I had. Like I didn't have to be surrounded, and like no one really. Because there was one thing that, because I'm a people pleaser, I really like wanted them to accept me. And not judge me or reject me. So I wanted to make sure that they would like actually like everyone would like me. And then realizing that a lot like no one's, because like people, not everyone's gonna like you. Not everyone's gonna agree to how you live and like what you live by. And me realizing that that's okay as long as I'm living through what God says to live through. That's the only thing I really need. That's the only love I really need, is his love and not other people's love, and like friends and like relationships and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely one of the encouragements that I had to open up to, that I really didn't need all the love, I just needed the right kind of love.
That's awesome.
And that love goes through God. Like God shows that love through people, and it shows. So I think that's definitely
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, like God is love. You know, like once you really become a part of him, like I wrote something on Facebook, and it's like, we're not trying to love. Like I don't gotta go out my house and try to love people. It's like love is flowing through me because I'm connected to
but
him.
People see that.
Yeah, exactly.
People do see that.
Exactly.
Like really in high school, everyone was like, "Why are you so happy all the time?" And I was like, "I mean, I go to church. Like you should come.
You should try it.
You should try it." Because you know, like we find joy when it comes to the world. We find joy from other things, and we realize that the world will never satisfy. That's never going to satisfy us.
Because it's an emotion. Like joy is like something that is on you. You know, and it flows out. And that's like something that my mom, like, that's like the person where it's like, when I realize, she knows it. Like,
oh my gosh, every time that I talk to her, every time that I talk to your mom, I'm just like, oh, you charge my battery. Right, like every time.
She's like the godliest.
Oh my gosh. That's why our moms get along so
they're like,
well.
they became best friends and like
best friends.
Yeah, like
they didn't even have to have like literally like a week to know
they
each other.
didn't.
They only literally had like maybe 15 minutes to talk, and they were literally.
like they're like the same person. Like
they are.
When I talk to them, it's like I like talk to Pastor Andrea, and it's like, you know, like she'll like be saying something to me, and I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to my mom. Yeah, and it's like, but it's like that's where I had to get to, like my mom, where she's like, you know, like God has like a purpose for you. Like I really say, like starting like probably, like I said, around 18, 19, I really had a guard up, because I'm like, you know, like I don't want people to perceive me as this, or like, you know, like I had like, you know, especially growing up in school, like, you know, I'm like, you know, I was like just a nice person, so that someone always perceived that the wrong way, where it's like, you know, like you can't be nice because, you know, people may be trying to take advantage. So it's like I automatically had a guard up, because it's like, you know, like I don't really, you know, I don't want, you know, it's like I don't want people to say, oh yeah, like, you know, like if it's like I'm friends with a girl and it's like, oh yeah, you may like, you were talking about that, and it's like, oh, you like her, and it's like, no. I'm just being nice, like, you know, and it's like, my mom was like, don't change because people, like, you know, like God, that's a gift that God is giving you. Like the gift of love, a lot of people don't possess, and it's like the fact that he's giving that to you, don't change because of people for that. And that's something that she constantly reminds me of, because I have a huge problem, like where I'll just be in a place, I won't say nothing. I think that's where I was like, I'm a loner. I kind of add that to myself, that's not natural. Like, I just had, like, even at church, like it'd be a couple times when you guys are like, Adrian, like snap out at me. I'm just like,
no, because like he actually like I called him out actually, so
a couple times
because I'm like, where have you been? Like at young adults, because he like missed maybe a couple weeks. So I was like, where have you been? He's like, and I'm like, you're coming next week.
Yeah, she literally said it.
I was like, you're coming and you're not gonna say no. I'm not taking no for an answer.
I was talking to Austin, and she was like, Adrian, you always have the habit of like disappearing for weeks, and you just come back. I be disappearing.
It's like a magic trick.
Yeah, like just like we're like the disciples used to be like, where is Jesus at? Like literally, I don't say nothing to nobody. I just be like, and I just show back up, and everybody is like, the crazy thing is like now. People don't even be like, Adrian, where have you been? They're just like, hey, Adrian, like I can be gone for like 3 weeks. They're like, this is just I've heard people say like, yeah, no, this is just Adrian, bro. Like when it's new people like AJ, Ash is like, yeah, this is just Adrian, bro. Like, he's actually been here for like a year, but he'll just disappear for like times. And, but like you need people like her that's gonna call you out, like even Waffle House, she'll be like, dude, come to Waffle House, and I'm like,
he didn't go.
He
still didn't go.
I'm gonna go. It was like,
yeah, you better.
Yeah, I am. They order pizza.
Because that's where the connection happens. It's Waffle House. We go to a safe Waffle House.
Yeah.
It's safe.
The safest Waffle House, actually.
And it's still a little
Yeah.
Here in Tallahassee, there's not really a safe Waffle House.
It's not a lot of safe places in Tallahassee. But what is some encouragement? Oh wow, I just lost my notes. But what is some encouragement that you would give to those who may be in similar seasons as yourself, or even maybe in seasons where it's not really identical to yours, but they don't really know how to navigate it? What is some encouragement that you would give?
I think definitely, and Pastor James kind of talked about this. I forget if it was this week or if this was the last week, where sometimes we don't hear God's voice. Yeah. And I think the one thing is definitely what I started having alone time with him, because I never really had alone time with him.
Yeah.
Like I went to church and I considered that as my Bible study.
Yeah, same.
You know what I mean? Like I went to church, and I go to church a lot because I'm actually I'm part of staff of the church now, so I'm there like a lot. Yeah. And I'm there for young adults, youth, I'm there for work, and then I'm also there for special events, and I'm also there for Sunday mornings. And I always was like, oh yeah, that's my godly time, is me going to church. Yeah. But realizing that in order to really grow your relationship with God, it has to be private time. Yeah. It has to be private time with God. So I think that's definitely, but there has been some times that I prayed about something and I didn't hear God's voice, but that doesn't mean He's not listening. Yeah. If you don't hear none, He's still listening to you. He is, right. And that's that whole thing about God's timing. Because I am not a patient person. Yeah. I do not. And I feel like I don't even, I've not even met someone other than my mom, because my mom is literally like your mom, she has the patience, and I look at her and I'm like,
you're really so patient. I don't understand
how in the world. And God's timing is the best timing. And so definitely with this season, I literally talked to my mom about it, because I was on the phone, I was a little upset, and I was talking to her, and I was like, Mom, I wish there was just a skip button and I could just skip this season right now. But if we don't learn from the seasons that we're in, we're never going to prepare ourselves with what He has behind that season. Exactly. So I think that's definitely one thing, is get in the Word when it comes to private time. I think definitely when it comes to people who grew up in church, or who don't really go to church all the time. Definitely get in the Word. Pray to Him even though you don't hear Him, because He's still listening. And then just work on your patience, because again, we're not perfect. But as long as we're trying to be patient, and we have our hearts open with that, God sees that.
Striving to be like Christ, basically.
So that's the one thing that one of the people, when I was in high school, everyone was like, oh, you're Christian, so you must I guess you're perfect. And I was like, well, you don't have to be perfect to get in heaven. Right. A lot of people say that you have to be perfect, but that's not true. As long as you love God and you strive that relationship, and you have that honest and not perfect relationship with Him, then you will have eternal life. And I think that a lot nowadays, that I don't have to be perfect in my relationship with God, as long as I'm honest and my heart is open, and I follow, like, if I, like, with, like, the fruits of the Spirit, like,
Yeah,
as long as I have my heart in that and my values are that, then God sees that, and God will bless that. So that's basically my encouragement to other people.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I think that's, I wrote, because I have a huge habit of, like, really, like, oh, yeah, man, like, God just told me what to say, and I don't write it down. I try to remember it.
You don't write it down?
I don't.
I have a whole notepad.
You know the funny thing? Even at young adults, like my friend Trey, like he added me to his notes because I have a huge problem with not taking notes.
You don't write notes when you're listening to sermons?
I know. I have, like, because, like, the thing is, like, I always remember it. Like, you can ask me, like, yo, what did James preach about on Tuesday? And I can tell you everything that he said. But then it's like, in those moments where it's like, yo, like, you know, like, God has given you this to say, I always forget. It's like the train has left the station. Like, but I am getting better at writing, though. I actually can't say that.
So I just started journaling.
Yeah.
And
journaling is different.
It's different. So hard, but it's something that, like, I just knew that I had to do. And then I put my prayers in my journaling, but we still have to pray on our own time, not just journaling. Yeah. Because that's the one thing. Like, I wrote down, like, my prayers. Yeah. But at the same time, I also didn't actually, like, pray that day. I, like, wrote my prayer. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, but I did start journaling a little bit, and me realizing journaling, and, like, I can look back my next season, I can look back at that and I'm like, oh, there was a reason behind this,
right?
Like, there was, and that's something that the reason why I'm doing it is so I can look back on something when I feel doubtful.
You wanna know the funny thing is, like, a lot of people may laugh at me for this. I really started journaling because it's like, I want my future kids and grandkids to be like, oh, like, what did Grandpa write about?
My mom, she actually journaled, and all her journals are in the garage.
Yeah.
And she that's the same reason why she did it. So I
was like, look, man, I got David's journals, Paul's journal. I want my kids to have my journal. So, like, they're in a similar season. They're like, let's see what Dad said about this. But yeah, like, some, like, encouragement that, you know, has really helped me in this season of my life, and that, you know, people, like, you know, that really has come from God, but also, like, from people. It's like, you know, it's just a season, like, you know, like, it's not forever, like, you know, it's like,
that's so true.
Yeah, it's like, and seasons go by so quick, and we think it's long.
This season started in May, and it's August. May,
that's so June,
crazy
July,
that
these seasons are the same, like,
and
same
so. It's only been 3 months, and I already feel like it's been forever.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and, like, the whole thing about the skip button.
Yeah.
Like, my mom, she laughed so hard. And I was like, I just wish there was and I was, like, bawling my eyes out. I was in the car. And I was like, I just wish there was a skip button. And she's like, I know, baby. I know.
That sounds just like my mom. Because, like, I remember, like, that's the funny thing. Like, I have a habit of getting over dramatic, like, especially when it's a tough season.
So dramatic.
So I told my mom, I was like, yo, listen, Mom, like, cause that's like in April when everything just started kind of going, like, you know, like, crazy. So I just told my mom, I'm like, yo, Mom, like, I'm not saying I want to die or nothing like that, but God could just take me right now. Like, she was like, and she was listening to me the whole time after I said that. She stopped me. She was like, yo, I'm gonna need you to cut that out right now. I was so heated, bro.
There's a thing where, like, you can be like, oh, like, if Jesus comes now, like, I'll be fine. But when you see something like that, it's completely different.
It is. I was like, yo, I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna have to deal with any of this in heaven. Like, God, you can just take it. And my mom was like, yo, stop that right now. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just give it. Yeah, that's
sometimes we need that call out.
But you know, the funny thing is, like, that's the funny thing about seasons. Like, your season probably is only gonna last like 6 months. And it feels like it's a year, and it's like that's like.
Well, that's the one thing that, like, I'm kind of, like, blessed that I know, but, like, I kind of already know the length of my season, if that makes sense. And that's definitely, like, it's gonna be a year, and it might be longer. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
But that's definitely something where I was just like, well, like, this last year was, like, the longest ever. Yeah. Like, I was talking to my friend MB, and I was like, oh yeah, last year, and then I was like, wait, last year I graduated high school. That seemed like forever ago.
Sorry, that's what it was. So I said I told her I was a loner. When you said that, I was like, envy. That's what it was.
It was. So envy is definitely that godly friend that I, was starting to pray for. So she's definitely one of those friends. And I was just talking to her, and I was like, this season's gonna be so long. And she was like, and I'll do it with you. And it's something that, like, when you have friends that will walk through those seasons with you, it actually makes it a little better.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It won't speed the process. But it'll make it better.
Yeah, and she's awesome. I remember, she was like, yo, all of us should hang out outside of out of church one day, and I'm like, yo, I'm down.
Pickleball.
Pickleball. Let's do that. I haven't played pickleball, but I'm good at tennis. I don't know if that.
Okay, but so you're talking to the champion of young adults.
The champion of pickleball. Okay. I'm gonna have to ask Andy about that, actually.
No,
I know she knows.
Honestly, that's fine. Just don't talk to anyone else about it. Because they might.
Not Emily?
No, because I beat Emily.
Oh, okay. I've heard her talk about pickleball, and it sounds like she's pretty good. That's why I asked. What about Olivia?
She's good.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah. Okay. It's more like like AJ and like if you, because I'm like, okay, I'm not really, I'm like second place.
We still all gotta play basketball.
But second place is basically last place.
Yeah, we still been trying to put a basketball game together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I play basketball.
I told her I'm like Tallahassee Steph Curry, and she doesn't believe me, man. Like,
I don't believe it until I see it. Because I thought I was Tallahassee.
You thought you were Tallahassee?
Yeah, I thought it was me.
All right, so we're gonna have a 3-point contest then.
I guess so.
but like just realizing that this season of my life, like God has me in this place in my life for a specific reason, and it's also to teach me something. I think also we would go through it. It's like, I thank God to put us in the same season again, because like you didn't learn when I put you in the season.
I was just about to say that. Like I was saying, he's gonna make that season longer if you don't actually open up and actually like learn.
If you don't open your heart to the idea of it, then it's okay, cool, like. And honestly, you know how we were like, yeah, God, we get it. Like, I understand the lesson. It's like,
no, you don't.
If you understood it, you wouldn't be.
But honestly, I think the one thing is that we need to also learn to enjoy the season that we're in. That's something when it comes to like the waiting season and like one of like the desires that I have is definitely like I'm only 20 and like I've always wanted to get married when I was like super young.
Yeah, same here.
And me and me realizing that like I was desiring that then more than God.
Right.
He was like, all right. Like,
that's how it was with me too. Like that's the thing I was about to say. Like you'll know when your season is up when you start enjoying it. When you're like, yo, God, this is fun. No, I swept the rug right under your feet, and it's like, God, I was like, I actually like the season that I was just in, and it's like,
he's like, no, but you're ready now.
And I remember you and me were talking about that, like even like with our parents, like we've seen our parents' marriage, and it's like, you know, sometimes from a young age when you see that, it's like I want the same thing that they had, and it's like relationships. That was like an idol for me for a little bit, like 15, 16, like. You know, then it's kind of like, you know, like you tell yourself, like, yeah, man, I don't want to be in a relationship. And you're looking at God like God, like, you know, like deep down, you know, I want to be in a relationship.
That was the one thing, like, I haven't, and I'm not shameful for this at all. I tell a lot of people this, and I'm just like, I have not, in the past 3 years, I haven't been single because that was something that was an idol to me, is to like, because I was bullied all those years, and when I moved here, I finally, like, boys, like, kind of, like, grabbed my attention a little bit because they were giving their attention to, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is cool. Yeah. And I was for the last 3 years, I wasn't single, and now, and when, like, now that I'm in I was so uncomfortable. Yeah. And, like, and I hate being uncomfortable. Yeah. And I hate being vulnerable, and I hate, like, because I'm such, like you're not passive. Yeah. And realizing that like that's one of the habits that when I'm uncomfortable, I go into a habit. Yeah. And that was one of the habits that I had. And then obviously he called me out on it, and my mom also, she was like, why do you do this? And I was like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And she's like, well, don't, and then you will figure out why. And I did. I was just like, because I felt uncomfortable, and I just like.
Yeah, like honestly, like that was like me, but different. Like I never been in a relationship before, but I was always pursuing that. Like it always kind of ended at the situationship line. It never kind of progressed to it never progressed to anything like more than that. And honestly, I thank God for it because I think it also has matured me. Because one of the funny things is like, even in this season of my life with singleness, like I don't know how long that season is going to be, but also realizing like, like. That's my daughter that you're going to have, and are you going to treat her like that's my daughter? And are you the man that you want to be for your family?
That's the thing. Like that was one of the things I was like. That was one of the things I was just like, I am not a future. Like I'm not a godly wife right now.
Yeah.
I'm not, and that's something that I had to like actually say to myself because I was just like, yeah, like I could get married, but I'm like, no, I like all the priorities. Like I haven't even put God first, let alone like why would I even put someone else first when I don't even put God first in my life?
Exactly.
That's what God says. You have to like God comes first.
Yeah.
And that's over your spouse. That's over your kids. That's over everyone, even your family. Yeah. God comes first.
And that's something that like even in this like season of my life, it's like I always said like once I do enter into that stage of my life where I'm in a relationship and I'm getting married, it's like like. I'm never putting you above the Lord. I need you to keep that same command. Like, because like, I'm not, if I put you on this pedestal, like you'll never be able to fulfill what I'm looking for. So that's
some people take offense to that. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not.
Like that's actually love. Like when someone's coming to you in that, it's like, that shows you, those are the people that you want, in your life. And those are probably the people that
and friends too. That's definitely something that like, God has recently spoken in the last week, and I was talking with a friend, and she was like very vulnerable, and she was just like, I just feel this joy, and then it like hit me, and he was just like, this is your friend that you need to pour God into each other, because I never had that friend where we like when I say like godly friendship, I mean like we go like we watch sermons instead of like Netflix and like stuff like that. And then realizing that was the friend, and that's in the season that I'm in right now is like I'm pouring myself into a friend, and she's gonna pour herself into me. So that's definitely something that I'm super excited about.
And even in the like where it's like being in this season of my life, it's like reading about David and Jonathan, it's like that Jonathan was an actual friend. And we give the word friend to people that really don't deserve it.
Right.
And it's like actually realizing like those people that, and I thank God, like I probably say like I have like 5 or 6 actual people that I know like if I was actually really going through something, those people are actually going to be there. Yeah,
my dad always teaches, and I feel like it was either this last week or the week before. I don't remember because I'm always serving. Yeah. And he always, and even before he taught this on stage, he talked to me about this because I had a problem where I had friends and I put him too close in my circle. So he drew it out because he's a very visual person, and so am I. So he drew it out, and he was like, it's kind of like layers. Like there's like a little inner circle and then an outer, and then like it keeps going, and he was like, all your friends are in your inner circle, and that shouldn't be that way. Yeah, exactly. Especially when now here's the thing. When God is saying that like, hey, they're not the right friend, don't shut them down completely. That just means that they're not the right friend that you need right now. But still hang out with them. Still like
you don't gotta be like get away from
me.
Get
away. Like God told me not to hang out with you. Exactly. That's not true. It's just something like the right friend that I need right now is a friend that I can pour into God with, and they can pour me into. Like that's the friend I need right now, and I realize that. And I had too many people who weren't that kind of friend for right now. Yeah. And then I had to space them out a little bit, but that's something that I had to realize.
Yeah, and I was going through this season of my life where I was kind of you set expectations. It's if I'm going into this place everybody's gonna remain the same. Something that I practice every time I go into a place, any place is I may have an awesome conversation with a coworker. I'm not expecting the next day for us to have a conversation because it sets you up. Like, it, honestly, you may have another awesome conversation, but when you expect it, it's like, sometimes, like, in my case, I would expect it, and then the person, like, would be like, I don't want to talk to you. And it's like, well, we just talked, like...
And sometimes it affects your day, which it shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely something that I was just like, oh, they didn't talk to me today.
Yeah.
Like, I just, like,
yeah.
you know, and realizing I was like, wait, that shouldn't even affect my day.
Right.
They just
maybe
didn't talk to me.
Maybe they're just going through something, and that's like what I was saying. Like,
that was the one thing, like, maybe they're going through something.
Yeah, and we don't ever consider that. And that's like the funny thing, like with Matthew, like I was telling him, like, bro, I'm dealing with this stuff, and he was like, bro, like, I'm so sorry to hear that you're dealing with this. And he, like, you know, he sent me like a long message, but one of the last things, a part of that message was like, bro, you're a person with God so centered in your life, bro, never lose that. Mm. And it brought me, and the funny thing was, like, right before he sent that text, my mom told me something very similar.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, it brought me back to a place where it's like, a situation may be around you, it doesn't have to be on you. And we put a situation on us like it's a backpack instead of realizing, like, yo, like, these people may be being jerks right now, but at the end of the day, like, that doesn't have anything to do with me. It has everything to do with that person. Mm-hmm. And I still have to love, because again, love isn't
I always thought that there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I guess there's something that I did. Was it like, but realizing that, like it's not all about you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just like, oh, it's not. You're right. Like, but I'm such a caretaker, and I'm like, I want to care for people and like make their business my business. Yeah. But they obviously they were like, oh yeah, sure. And then I put too much on myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then recently I was just like, I've been worrying about this person recently, and God was just like, I have them. Mm-hmm. Stop worrying about them. Right. Worry about, like, take care of yourself. That's someone, like, you, like, I have plans for you. Mm-hmm. And those plans are not going to happen unless you take care of yourself. Right.
Like, that may be your brother or your sister, but that's my child.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then when he gives you that reassurance, it's like, oh, okay, like, I don't have anything to worry about because I trust God. And that's, like, even when it concerns relationships, mm-hmm. It's like, yo, like, you know, something that even God has, like, showed me, even from listening to sermons too, is like just realizing, like, you know, when I actually am pursuing my future wife, it's like, yo, like, it's no pressure. Like, it's not like we have to get married in the next week, because, like, look, I trust God with your future and I trust God with my future. Like, we may not be for each other. That doesn't mean I'm going to hate you because you're not for me. It's like, yo, like, God is your father just like he's my father, and he has a plan for the both of us. And that plan may be for us to be together. That plan may be for us to, you're still my sister in Christ regardless of the fact, you know. And to, like, end it, it's like, you know, some encouragement that I would give is like, you know, the season that you may currently be in is only for a period of time. And, like, I don't know how long that season may be for, you know, some people, but just realizing, like, you know, cherish every season that you go through, bro. Like, it's,
even when it's ugly.
Even when it's ugly. And put your seatbelt in, because, you know.
Put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, put
Fasten
your
seatbelt.
Because it's like, yo, life is a roller coaster. There's going to be times where you're going up and you're going down and it's straight and you're turning around and it's like, but you got to realize God is the driver's seat.
But God, like, yes, like, those happen, but it, like, God has a purpose behind it, but it's not like he does it just to, like, he does it to show you something. Yeah. He doesn't do it to, like,
hurt us. Right. And you also realize, like, every season, like, that you go through, I think it's like in James where it's like, yo, like, cherish those times that you go through, because that's going to give you the endurance that you need for this life. Because, like, when you run and if you do track, you understand, like, you can't do no 400 meter if you're not in shape.
No.
You know, it's like, yo.
No, because I was in track and that did not work.
You just can't show up to track practice and you just eat donuts every day and just sit on the couch. Like, no, like, you actually got to put in work. And I think, like, that's the thing about this life. Like, you got to really just, you know, that work means you're putting, and also don't get in the habit of judging yourself. Like, I didn't read my Bible on Monday. It's like, yo, like, where it's like the righteous man falls down, like, what, 7 times and gets back up 8 or something. Like, I think I might be misquoting that, but it's like, yo, like, if you miss one day, just get right back up. And it's like, you know, like you don't have to sit. I think sometimes like, well, I missed the day already, I might as well continue, because you judge yourself internally. And I heard something like, most of the times the sins that you repeat or the things that you repeat in your life, it's because you actually regretted it and you condemn yourself about it. And you realize like, I don't have anything to condemn myself about, because God is in this room right now, regardless if there was a camera recording. It's like, yo, like, no, like I'm present. Like when two or more are gathered in my name, I'm here actually with you. So it's like, you know, yeah. So like, I've only had guys on the podcast, so I usually be like, yo, what does like a kingdom man mean to you? So I'm gonna ask, what does a kingdom person mean to you? Or kingdom woman? I'll say, what does a kingdom woman mean?
I think definitely when it comes to this world, women really, when it comes to insecurities and when it comes to just how the world pictures a woman in this world, I think definitely when, again, find your identity, when a king, like honestly finding your identity in Christ, but make that a priority. I think when they make that, I think when women are making that a priority, making God a priority, it will definitely fulfill them. And sometimes like they fulfill, like me, I fulfilled, and like I seeked so many things that would like thought that they would like fulfill me and all that kind of stuff, and then finding out that God gives that fulfillment. And I think that's definitely like when you make God a priority, He's gonna show His works for you. And I think one thing is like the whole forgiveness thing. I think that was one of the things that really spoke out to me when we were talking. Just like, girl, sometimes we hold stuff in and we don't forgive, and we say that we do, but we don't. I think just putting that forgiveness and that patience and self-control, I think when we put that first and we put God's love first, it will definitely show, and it will definitely those blessings will come.
So like before I have Jordan pray us off, I have two scriptures, so I'm gonna read one and she's gonna read one. But so we're gonna be reading Psalms 1 and Galatians 6:9. Actually, which one do you want to read? I'll actually let you.
I'll just read the Galatians.
Oh, you want to read it? I think you left your Bible on there.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so y'all read Psalms 1, and I'll just be reading verses 1 through 3, and it says, "How happy is the one who does not walk in the advice of the wicked, or stand in the pathway with sinners, or sit in the company of mockers. Instead, his delight is in the Lord's instructions, and he meditates on it day and night. He is like a tree planted beside flowing streams that bears its fruit in its season, and whose leaves does not wither. Whatever he does prospers." And again, that's Psalms 1. That's just some encouragement for me that I was like, okay, cool. Like, you know, he is like a tree. The verse that really stood out to me was like, he is like a tree planted beside flowing streams that bears its fruit in its season. And it's like, it may not bear its fruit in the season that you want it to, but it will bear its fruit in the season that it's supposed to. So
Absolutely. I think that before we even started, you were talking about this verse, and your mom said it, that she actually she puts y'all's name in that. And that also ties into what I said about, you know, like how women and like we want to show, basically like if we show that we are the light of this world, there is a purpose behind it. So I think that's definitely, it does tie into what, it's not just women, but people. Like we want to be a light in a dark place. That's something that my mom prayed over us. You know, let them be a light in a dark place in their schools, in their work, and just like for their coaches, for their friends. Like that's something my mom prayed for years.
Like one of my favorite people at Transformation, Mr. Dennis, he said he was like, people like should know like when you walk in the room, the Holy Spirit is following right with you. And you know, like he sends me those like morning encouragement every single day. So that's pretty cool. But
And then is it Galatians 6:9? So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up.
Yeah.
I think, wow, that's good.
Yeah. And I think the funny thing, like even with both of those verses, like kind of, you know, correlating with each other, like in the aspect of like, and if you don't give up, if you actually like stand with and you stand down with God in those seasons where you want to kind of,
If you
like, throw in
stand
the
firm
towel, yeah.
from what you believe in,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a struggle, but like
Yeah.
you'll go through it.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So good. But yeah, I'm gonna have Jordan pray us out. I thank you so much for being on this
Of
episode.
course, thank you for having
You're
me.
so welcome.
Lord God, I just thank you for today, and I thank you for making this time for us, for Adrian and for me, just to talk about what seasons that we're in. And Lord, I just pray that what we talked about today, that just it didn't have to speak to everyone, but if it just spoke to the one person, that would be enough. Lord, I just thank you for Adrian, for the gift that you've given him for this podcast, and him just sharing your word and sharing his testimony into these things. Lord, I just thank you for, again, making this moment and making this special moment for us, and for just speaking our testimonies and our word and just encouragement to these people, Lord. And I just thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. I thank you guys so much for watching this podcast episode. Again, I say thank you, Jordan, for being on there with me. And I just want to say, like, you know, something that she said that really stuck out to me was, like, having those faith friends rather than those flesh friends. And you'll be able to discern who those people are.
And that will help you through your season.
Yeah, and help you very much in your season. And I just I also just want to give a shout out to those people that you know who you are, that are my faith friends. So yeah, I just want to do that. Thank you guys. I love you guys. See you next episode.